Hi, I'm Christina Strickland, Managing Partner of Rally Wealth and Benefits, and today I have Joe Michael from our team here. Joe is the director and guru of all things workplace retirement plans. He's going to be walking us through today different items and hot button things that impact plan sponsors. So regulations, fiduciary capacities, different fiduciary partnerships through 316s, 338s, things like that. So, Joe, thanks so much for taking the time.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Okay, so a lot going on in the world. Just like our last segment we talked about, we make plans based on the rules as they are today.
Right.
Same thing with workplace retirement plans. As an owner of a company or a human resources representative or a CFO, whoever's in that kind of financial world of the workplace, they may have set up the retirement plan under different rules and regulations at the time of the beginning of the plan. So can you kind of fill us in, on the last several months of what has changed in regulations and rules and what, as a current plan sponsor, what do I need to be aware of?
Sure. Absolutely. Retirement plans have always been a focus from our government, enticing organizations to bring in these plans into fruition, right? Again, they want these everyday individuals take advantage, save for the future. They understand the importance of it, and they're already struggling with Social Security as it is. So, for years, retirement plans were important, but there really wasn't a lot of legislation over the years impacting them until, again, as you mentioned recently. There's the Secure Act and Secure Act 2.0 that were just recently passed. And ironically, it has been one of the largest retirement plan pieces of legislation to hit since ERISA. And that was back in 1974. So huge opportunities, huge changes coming down the pipe for a lot of retirement programs. The good news is that the far majority of these options and new provisions that are within these regulations are optional for plan sponsors. However, there are a few that are mandatory. And if there's anything that I see in retirement plans is plan sponsors need to be made aware which ones are mandatory, are they doing it, and are they compliant with the new regulations that exist today.
And so who in the relationship as a plan sponsor, typically you have a record keeper, you have an advisor, and sometimes you have a third-party administrator if that's not part of your record-keeping team. But ultimately, whose responsibility is it to make sure that my plan is in compliance and that I have, to your point, complied with the new mandatory rules?
Not to put a shock into the system, but at the end of the day, it is the plan sponsor's responsibility to ensure that I's are dotted and T's are crossed as it comes to the retirement programs. Now, the great benefit is that, to your point, these plan sponsors have the opportunity to hire these experts to help walk with them, guide them in their responsibilities. These all kind of break down into fiduciary responsibilities. So they don't have to bear this burden alone. However, they are responsible for making sure these things are built and running as smoothly and as effectively as the government says they should.
And so now I'm going to ask you, because as you know, I talk about retirement plans enough to be dangerous, but I'm certainly not the expert at this table. So here's my question. One of the rules that is very widely discussed is that an individual over the age of 50 is allowed to do a catch-up contribution, right? So there's the limit of how much you can contribute, but if you're over 50, you're allowed to contribute more. There is a rule that starting in, I think, 2027, that if you're over 50, or did it start this year?
No, it started this year. You're referring to the super catch-up.
Again, I'm not the expert at the table.
Sure.
What I'm referring to is that catch-up has to be Roth.
Oh, no, that's effective this year.
So 2026,
yes.
If I'm over 50 and I'm doing above and beyond the normal limit, that contribution has to be Roth.
So there's a caveat to that.
Okay.
So, and again, this is why it's so critical for plan sponsors to work with not financial advisors. I'm a big fan of financial advisors, but you need to be working with a retirement expert that's a financial advisor, not just a financial advisor that dabbles in investing. They don't want the 401k plan to go across the
Right.
street.
Right.
So this focuses on what the industry calls HPIs. We love our acronyms, called
Yes.
highly paid individuals.
Okay.
So you're correct that individuals, as they go into the catch-up provision, which
Mhm.
is over age 50,
Mhm.
you have the ability to do more than
Mhm.
beyond the
Mhm.
typical limit.
Okay.
However, there's a number
Mhm.
that is regulated as
Mhm.
to who is considered a highly paid individual or not. For 2026,
Mhm.
they look at, and they'll always look at the prior year number.
Okay.
And right now that number is 150,000.
Okay. So in 2025,
Mm-hmm.
if I made 150,000 or more
Correct.
and I'm over the age of 50
Yes.
and I want to contribute more, it
Yes.
has to be Roth.
That's correct.
Okay. But if I made under 150,
You can do
I'm
it.
over 50 years old, I want to contribute more, I don't have to, it doesn't have to be Roth.
You have the option of pre-tax and Roth. So I want that crystal clear.
Okay. Yep.
The first limit you have is
Mhm.
your typical normal contribution
Yep.
limit, which is 24,500 this year.
Okay.
Doesn't matter how much you make.
You can do that whatever you
You
want.
can do pre-tax, Roth, mixture of
Mhm.
both, whatever you want, no matter how much money
Right.
you make.
'Kay.
It's only with the catch-up contribution,
Yep.
that additional amount,
Mm-hmm.
that's where this provision comes
Yeah.
into play.
Okay. So, but what if my record keeper or my payroll doesn't have the option to do Roth?
So that's a really good question. So it really comes then into a situation of, if you don't want to do Roth, then you, for the most part,
Just don't do it.
just don't do catch-up contributions. Don't allow
Okay.
catch-up contributions. Because again, that's the beauty of these retirement programs. They're so flexible.
Mm-hmm.
Can make them do whatever you do whatever you want to.
Right.
You got a lot of
Sure.
plan design options.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see individuals, if they want to avoid Roth just to avoid the problem that would take place,
Mhm.
then they would avoid doing catch-up. Or
Got
if
it.
they're doing catch-up, then go ahead and allow Roth.
Got it. Interesting. So it's I think that's the thing as a plan sponsor, right? Again, is like when we set up I've worked with retirement plans that Roth didn't even exist, when they set them up. So,
Right.
or maybe it started to exist, but payroll companies didn't have the opportunity
Right.
to split that out. So it certainly is a thing where and what is interesting, and I think that everyone has probably experienced this, if you're listening to this and you're in the know about workplace retirement plans, it seems that the regulation, specifically as it relates to Secure Act and Secure Act 2.0, the regulation came, I think, in many cases before the capability came.
Correct.
So what is so interesting to me about that is the amount of record keepers, the number of options has dwindled because it's a significant impact on them, right?
100%.
To financially keep up with new softwares and new data requirements to make all these things happen. So, okay, so we've got the Secure Act 2.0. What else changed? I know there was something with the force out that changed as
Right.
well. Talk
So
about that.
there's a force out provision where individuals, when you're sponsoring a plan
Mhm.
and you've got individuals that have low account balances that terminate, they're no longer a part of your plan.
Mhm.
There's a limit there that you can force individuals out of the plan if they're no longer an employee.
Okay.
That limit used to be $5,000. Now
Mhm.
that's been increased up to $7,000. Not a big, robust change.
Sure.
But it does give plan sponsors a little bit more flexibility in removing those terminated participants that may have just hung on.
Mhm.
And again, as sponsors of retirement plans, they've got fiduciary responsibilities for all participants,
Right.
regardless if they're an employee or not.
Mhm. So things like, I mean, I'll share what I know, and obviously you're going to add to it. But if I am a plan sponsor and I have terminated employees that don't work there anymore, and they have less than $7,000, it would be beneficial to me to get them out of my plan.
Mhm.
I'm thinking about, for the purposes of when they turn 73 and they have required minimum distributions,
Right.
what if I can't get a hold of them?
Right.
Right. But
Correct.
what are the other reasons you would want to get them out of your plan?
I mean, remember, there's so many, but you're required to constantly communicate with your participants of your plan, again, regardless if they're active or terminated.
Mhm.
Great example I see happen a lot. You've got individuals and plans that change investment options, and they're required to send these notices to these individuals.
Sure.
And it's traditionally not at the fault of the plan sponsor. You may have this terminated participant that has moved 5 different times
Right.
and left a $5,000 401k balance
Yeah.
somewhere that they've even forgotten about.
Right.
It's still the plan sponsor's responsibility to reach out to that participant and let them know.
Mhm.
So, just difficulty in communications alone. And you're talking about such a small amount, yet the fines and penalties that can be assessed to plan sponsors for failing to do their fiduciary responsibilities are quite large. So it helps to try to mitigate some of those responsibilities that plan sponsors have.
Does getting rid of those terminated people in the plan, does that impact whether or not you need an audit?
So that's a really good question. And it certainly depends on your plan type as well. Most plans are ERISA-based plans. So there's a limit of the number of participants you can have. And if you cross that threshold, then yes, an audit is required. And that audit is pretty costly, with thousands of dollars. I've seen it on average around $5,000 to as high as $11,000 to get this done. So especially as a smaller plan, the more you can avoid that requirement, certainly the better. So there are ways that, yes, if you're getting close to that threshold, which is right at around 100 participants, you want to stay that small plan filer and avoid that audit requirement. It makes sense to clean those out as well.
So termed participants still count towards that limit.
Correct.
Okay. So, but then also I'm just thinking through, like, if you are, I believe most workplace retirement plans have hit this stage where hopefully they're not commission-based anymore, and they're fee-based. And that fee-based is probably based on assets in the plan or participants or a combination of the two. So you certainly would not want to pay a higher fee because you've got more assets in the plan that could have been kicked out or more people in the plan that could have been kicked out.
100%.
So there's fees, there's the audit, there's the fiduciary communication requirement.
Right.
Okay, so definitely want to get them out of the plan if possible. What and another thing I guess I'm thinking through is part of the amount of assets in the plan, which could be higher because of terminated participants, is also the bond. Talk me through
You got it.
the bond requirements and what plan sponsors need to know about that.
So, and this kind of takes us into a conversation about some more fiduciary responsibilities. The thing I see with plan sponsors, whenever there's a violation of fiduciary responsibilities, it's nothing with malintent.
Right.
It's usually there's just something that they've completely missed. And one of those things is that ERISA bond.
Okay.
So whenever you sponsor an ERISA employer-sponsored retirement program, you're required to have an ERISA fidelity bond, which goes to cover a certain portion. The purpose of the bond is quite simple. It protects the plan against those individuals that are involved. Think of a plan sponsor or maybe a payroll processor at your firm that's responsible for the contributions going into the plan. So it protects the plan against any kind of malintent. Someone back in the day would, if you think about it, decades ago, as individuals would do payroll, this is a bunch of cash.
Right.
Those big canvas bags that business owners would take to the bank every morning.
Yes.
The
little key lock.
You got it. You got
those.
it. One of those could, a bag full of 401k contributions. I'm going to go try my luck at Vegas, and it doesn't work out so well.
Wow.
So these fidelity bonds are built to kind of protect the plan itself for that. The main requirement is to have 10% worth of coverage up to a certain amount, right? So 500,000 in case if you're offering employer stock, that actually can go up to as high as $1 million. And individuals, again, with the good intention, start the plan, have a good balance in the ERISA bond, or starting with the ERISA bond. But then that plan grows,
Right.
Especially if you have great qualified advisors that are there to help you and your participants understand the plan. Hopefully things take off. And if you're not monitoring your ERISA coverage, you can fall under that limit. Technically, that's a violation. You could be dinged on.
So as a plan sponsor, you want some sort of annual or semi-annual kind of like sit down, right? With either a record keeper, an advisor, a TPA. What are the types of things you're looking at a bond.
Right.
You're probably looking at your participation rates, your termed versus active employees.
Yep.
What are the other things that, like, in my fiduciary checklist I should have?
One, just that. So many of our plan sponsors don't even know what fiduciary responsibilities they carry. So whether it's, a business owner or you've got a full-fledged retirement committee, everyone should be aware of what those fiduciary responsibilities are. A lot of it is just, quite frankly, acting in the most prudent fashion for your plan participants, i.e., you're putting them before your own self-interest. An example of this would be the investment selection process.
Okay.
How does a plan sponsor even choose?
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully they have some good guidance and assistance through financial advisors, what have you. But too often I'll see plan sponsors, they want a really sophisticated, kind of unusual investment in the plan because they're aware of it. And so they'll bring this on board. Right now, there's a hot topic going on about alternatives inside 401k plans and 403b plans. Can we do it? Things like private equity, cryptocurrencies, things of that nature. And so this plan sponsor may want it, so they put it in the plan, but yet the majority of their population, I mean, it's just not their forte.
Right.
So that right there is not really acting in the best, most prudent fashion for your employees. That's how easy it is to just walk over that line.
So, and I think in that regard, right, it would be pretty simple to just set up a self-directed sleeve.
You
Where
got
you
it.
could say, hey, look, maybe you have, take, for example, one of the hospitals we take care of. You might have some doctors or surgeons that are pretty in tune with the investment world, and they may say, I just really want this specific XYZ fund, but it's not a good investment choice for everyone.
You got it.
So just as a plan sponsor, you have the ability to say, I'd like to set up a self-directed arm where participants can contribute to the plan.
Yep.
And those dollars can be kind of filtered away, if you will, and invested at the individual participant's discretion. But that investment's maybe not available to everyone, right?
Right.
Because they've moved it into their own little self-directed bucket.
Sure.
And then from there, they can do whatever they want.
And I think that brings us to the next level, which is just simple education. There is just such a severe lack of education, especially in the world of retirement planning, that individuals have a hard time getting over.
Right.
Today's individual, not only do they need to know about the plan and investing, they need just as much focus and help on the post-retirement side than they do the pre-retirement side. So it's no longer just a conversation of who are your beneficiaries, what's your contribution rate, and what are your investment options. It's so much more dynamic than that. And that's personally one thing I love about what we do at Rally. We only put qualified financial advisors in front of participants at their location, at their convenience, because while most financial conversations may start with the retirement plan, it very rarely ends there. And we end up in all kinds of different conversations that go beyond the scope of just, is it pre-tax or Roth?
Sure. So, okay, I'm going to throw a situation at you because here's the thing that I think plan sponsors and fiduciaries always have this, and I have this kind of like, oh, that'll never happen to me. But I saw this happen, and I want to shed some light on it because I want to make people aware that it happens, but I also want to hear your perspective on what could have been done differently. Okay. So, there was a plan in the Midwest region. So, somewhere in Missouri, Kansas, Iowa, Nebraska, Oklahoma, somewhere in there, where there was a company that allowed participants to take loans from their 401k plan.
Yes.
But the company was in financial trouble. So they were withholding from participants. And listen, I know this story happened in the Midwest, but I genuinely believe that this could happen anywhere in the country.
Sure.
I just happen to know about it because I read about it in a Midwest forum.
But
participants were having money withheld from their paycheck for two reasons. One, new contributions to their plan.
Right.
Two, loan repayments.
Right.
But the plan sponsor, or maybe not that individual person, but whoever was responsible for collecting these dollars and getting them to the record keeper as a loan repayment wasn't doing it. So here's what happened. But the contributions are being made. So participant is looking at their record-keeping website and they're seeing their new contributions. They're not seeing their loan repayments, but they don't think it's that weird because they don't know that much about it.
Right.
But then they get a letter in the mail, like 90 days later, from the record keeper that says, hey, Susie Q, your loan is in default, and now you're going to owe taxes.
Yeah.
And because you're under 59 and a half, you're going to owe a 10% penalty. But the participant has a paycheck stub where they're like, "What do you mean I'm in default?
Right.
I have all these deductions for repaying my loan, but the money was never getting there." So, and I genuinely believe it probably wasn't the plan sponsor, because what I know to be true is that normally the plan sponsor is not that involved in the day-to-day nitty-gritty.
Right.
But as a plan sponsor, what should I have done differently, or what should they have done differently, or like who would have noticed that and kind of raised the red flag and said, "Hey, dude, something somewhere is not right."
That's a good question. And, unfortunately, issues like that
Mhm.
are so easy to take place because there's a number of reasons. It may be a software glitch
Mhm.
that a lot of plans have what's called payroll integration,
Mhm.
where individuals can go onto either their company's website or a record keeper's website, change contribution rates, and
Mhm.
communication go back and forth between the two.
Mhm.
There could have been a glitch there. It could
Mhm.
have been,
Mhm.
hey, I'm taking the money and going to
Mhm.
Tahiti,
Right. Right.
and
Yeah.
just having a good old time.
Mhm.
Thankfully, most of the time, kind of to what you pointed out, most plan sponsors aren't that way.
Mhm.
There's usually an underlying issue somewhere.
Mhm.
So there are correction programs that are established that
Mhm.
plan sponsors, record keepers together can work through to not only identify an issue such as a contribution error,
Mhm.
and it's certainly a lot friendlier if the plan sponsor and the record keeper kind of raise their hand and say,
Mhm.
"Hey,
Mhm.
Uncle Sam, I
Right.
made a mistake,"
Right. Versus them finding
versus
it.
them finding it.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's where the audit process comes into
Mhm.
play.
Mhm.
Um, Quite frankly, they're there for a reason.
Mhm.
They're gonna keep digging and finding something, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So you certainly would prefer as a plan sponsor to avoid that situation. So should you, number one, find an error, be it like that or anything,
Mhm.
do not be shy.
Right.
Raise your hand, talk to your financial advisor, talk to your record keeper.
Mhm.
You know, in a lot of situations like that, there's going to be a lot of finger pointing.
Mhm.
Um, you know, again, at the ultimate end of the day, it is the plan sponsor's responsibility to
Mhm.
make sure all things are running properly.
Mhm.
So are they on the hook? Probably.
Mhm.
Could there be a case where maybe the record keeper should have been more involved or they're more
Mhm.
I don't know, haven't gotten into it, but
Mhm.
I could see very well
Mhm.
how a record keeper could somehow get involved
Mhm.
in that kind of litigation. Man, that's litigation Judge Judy doesn't even want to mess with, right?
I just remember reading the article and I was like, "Holy smokes." Like for all of the plans that we manage, knock on wood, we've been very blessed to not have to deal with that.
Right.
But here's the thing. I think it's so important as plan sponsors and as advisors to constantly be reading and learning and to be aware of these things, because
Yes.
while we've never experienced that, never say never,
Right.
right? And so the more we can learn from our counterparts and what's going on in the world, the better equipped we are. Last question for you, because I know that you have other things to do
Fair
today
enough.
other than talk to me. Um, Last question. Break down for me 316, 321, and 338.
Okay, so here you're talking about co-fiduciary status.
Mhm.
So, or in certain cases, almost complete fiduciary change. So, as plan sponsors, as we mentioned, you're responsible for these fiduciary responsibilities, but there are different ways to help kind of share in that responsibility
Okay.
or put that off.
Mhm.
And one to start with is called the 316. This
Okay.
is where, in focusing on the administration
Mhm.
of your plan.
Mhm.
So think of annual notices that have to be
Okay.
submitted. Think of new hires, getting enrollment kits and
Mhm.
enrollment processes
Okay.
to these individuals. Think distribution
Mhm.
processes. Just everyday average running of the plan.
Okay.
You can have, be it a third party administrator, be it a record keeper will offer these services where you can help push some of that fiduciary responsibility of running the plan
Mhm.
onto someone else,
Got it.
and they'll help ensure
Mhm.
that the boxes are being checked of things that you as a plan sponsor should be doing
Mhm.
in running a plan.
Okay.
Then we get to the investment side of the fence,
Mhm.
and that's where 321 and 338 come in.
Okay.
So 321s and 338s typically are involving your investment professionals.
Mhm.
A 321 is kind of a co-fiduciary process where you'll have an advisor or professional come in, sit with you as a plan sponsor, your committee, to help together
Mm-hmm.
select, monitor, review, replace the investments within the plan. So there's equal footing.
Mm-hmm.
So should something happen, more than likely you'd see both the plan sponsor may
Mhm.
have to go to court for any kind of issue,
Mm-hmm.
as well as the other 321 provider
Mm-hmm.
being, say, a financial advisor.
Mm-hmm.
Then kind of a step above that
Mm-hmm.
is the 338. In this case, you are hiring someone to make all of those investment decisions for you, the plan sponsor.
Okay.
So that takes about as much investment responsibility off of your plate as you can. Don't get me wrong, as a plan sponsor, you are never free
Sure.
of that investment responsibility. You still have to manage and make sure that the person you've hired to be your 338 is doing it in an effective, efficient manner.
Right. They still have to be supervised.
You got it.
Mhm.
So it's not a get out of jail free card for investments, but it's about as much as you can distance yourself from that.
Got it. Got it. Well, thank you so much for walking us through that. I know as plan sponsors, sometimes it feels overwhelming, especially when you're dealing with, health benefits and payroll and human resources in general. It can feel daunting. So thanks for spending time walking through that. If plan sponsors have questions, you can reach out to Joe at retirementplans@rallywb.com. Joe and his team would be more than happy to help. So Joe, thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely.